A teacher's role is extremely important in shaping a child's personality and a sense of self. As future educators, it is vital to understand and respect each and every student that we will have the honor of teaching.
A genuine passion for creating a better world for those around and for putting our best foot forward for our role as educators has been the main focal point that has brought us all together.
We strive for teaching not just academics, but values that will shape a child as a better human. We wanted to unlearn the behavior of keeping teachers or people on a pedestal and just see each person as a human, regardless of their past achievements or mistakes.
Even though we are in different areas in the world, one thing we all have in common is our desire to be good teachers. The idea that brought on to meaningful conversations would be the problems we will have to face as teachers inside the classroom and with our students.
There were many topics that we explored as a part of our COIL course. Firstly, we had a discussion on the dangers of a single story.
It emphasized on the importance of representation for people from all cultures and backgrounds in literature and media. Another section that we explored was the lives that matter. In this segment, a powerful video by Eugene Yang that drew attention towards the people of the LGBTQ community and made us realize our part as family members and how the smallest of things we do in our daily lives makes an impact on a child.
Asking a simple question such as, "Are you okay?" could mean so much to someone. In this world, we lack listeners, and as educators, we must learn to listen and also teach our students the importance of being a patient and a good listener, along with learning to speak for ourselves.
This semester, we met with people from across the world to discuss something that we all had in common: education. But in doing so, we learned that we had so much more than just education as an interest in common. Our backgrounds, our cities, and our even sometimes history have parallels to one another. While things might not be the same across cultures, there are similarities that are shared, and those experiences bonded us while even tens of thousands of miles apart. The social aspect of education essentially guides the type of learning that the teacher and the student create together. It's a classroom environment that is not physical, as it is a social, non-physical, non-visible environment that surrounds the educator and their student. This is created together collaboratively with a mutual understanding of each other's backgrounds and experiences, where the student can contribute and the teacher can support. These environments allow for the most conducive forms of education, where this does not involve simply a lecturer standing in front of the room speaking at a group of students, where the student actually takes an active role in their learning and in their classroom to provide an enriching experience for themselves and for each other.
The risk of a single story infects and reflects from things around our ordinary normal lives. It matters how, when, and why these stories were told. The risk of it is about how we understand ourselves and others. The way Umi quotes it, to those who feel that fiction is make-believe, who's to say facts are the truth? It depends on what story we choose to listen and tell. Stories stem from social institutions, internalizing the norms and ideologies of a certain society upon an individual. The entirety of it accepts one story and rejects the other.
Like Adichie says in her famous speech, we are extremely impressionable and vulnerable in the face of a story. The problem with stereotypes is not that they are incorrect, but that they are incomplete. Statements like, "You speak English well for someone who wasn't born in the United States," and making assumptions about someone's ethnicity or culture based on how they look can be uncomfortable and upsetting in any situation. No one has to prove their ethnicity by fitting into the tight shell of a stereotype or conform to a single story. This activity raised multiple questions. How did one story become important? How do we open our eyes to the diversity of views that stem from different experiences and backgrounds? Best of all, we could relate and empathize with each other. We are ridiculously proud of our shared, borrowed, and exchanged cultures.
The Social Outreach United Learning Project, more simply called SOUL, is a collaborative endeavor between the student volunteers of St. Mira's College, Pune, and ASRA, an NGO based in the city. Girls across the graduate and postgraduate classes have signed up to teach spoken English to youth from disadvantaged communities.
What our girls are doing right now at ASRA, which is teaching them, through Zoom and, this whole distance education and online learning, that is absolutely wonderful, whatever they're doing, because they haven't really met the students themselves face to face. They haven't had that interaction. But despite all of these, logistical and technological difficulties that we face, they've managed to have built that same bond that, we would otherwise have had when we would meet the students face to face. That's very difficult to do, but they've managed to do it. They've managed to, break those barriers and connect with them in a very different way. And I know from, listening to the students, the children at Asra or Ishrat Bagh themselves, that they are super excited to be studying and learning things from our girls. They've also been able to customize the course for them. So some of them do not really need so much help in spoken English, but they need help in exposure. And that's what they've done. Many of them have also been, accommodative enough to change the timings and, work in a syllabus that is suitable for the students, for the children at Asra, which is something.
The one thing which I learned about was patience, because my patience level was 0. You have to listen to them patiently.
One thing I learned was compassion, something that I never considered until now, that we have to be compassionate in the classroom as educators. Students have come from different backgrounds, which is really important to consider, that not everybody has a really good home and has experienced like really great care for them. And I think it's really important to show compassion to the students, that you do care for their learning and their well-being as well. So that's really something that stood out to me, compassion in the classroom and as a teacher to your students. Thank you.
I think I gained perspective in the sense that when you teach students, it's not just about filling them up with information, but it's you as a teacher willing to change yourself over a period of time according to the needs of the student. Another thing that as educators we have to be mindful of is that we have to learn to give ourselves the space if we commit a mistake and admit that we've made a mistake.
To be or to try to be the teacher or the mentor you want someone to be for you. So I think that you want a teacher who's compassionate, who cares about you, who listens to you, and who wants to clear your silliest doubts, because those are not silly, but those are important and those matter. So
yeah, I think it just kind of echoes a lot of what everybody else has been saying in terms of just putting the student first. And I don't think that anyone here would go out into the real world and put themselves before their students, but it's just an interesting perspective to think of, to put that in the forefront of your mind, that it is the people you're teaching above all else, and to adapt and of course be compassionate and things like that. But I also think compassion is just kind of a very broad term to use for it, and that we use to kind of explain that we want the social interactions with our students and with people to inform how we interact with them.
To me, the greatest thing that I've learned and have appreciated through this course has been thoughtfulness from the part of the teachers. And it's because I've seen our teachers do this so strongly in the last couple of months, that we make these covert judgments even though we try not to. And I've seen the teachers around me repeatedly fight against that and to give the student the benefit of the doubt. And as we've done our course, that has been one thing that's been reinforced to me.
My thought process was a little similar to Armand's, I think. The idea of not being judgmental, because I have volunteered before in schools, and I've noticed that obviously everyone's situation, everyone's situation isn't the same as yours. So it's, I think, important to understand them in order to teach them properly, and in order to handle out exactly how to deal with each student.
When it came to teaching with Asra, I think understanding that the students will have very different learning techniques, and you can't just do what's convenient for you. You have to really understand how they learn better and stuff like that. So I think that.
Me personally, I think that it's many factors, such as be compassionate for students, because you don't know their background. You don't understand what's going on at home. And if you have to treat them with kindness, because maybe that's the only type of nice treatment they're receiving on that day. Also, patience, and understand that every student is unique. Not everyone learns at the same pace. Not everyone comes from the same background. You have to have an open mind to understand of their culture, and don't judge them or single story each student because they're from that background, they're gonna be this or that.
First teaching experience taught me a lot about what it means to be a teacher, and a lot about myself as a future educator.
What was important and what I loved about this course was people were willing to listen. We ask everybody to speak up and say things, what they really think, but we don't often listen to them. And we were able to allow the space to communicate and allow differences and thoughts. And, we could find ourselves in those intersecting spaces of our cultures and, finally be able to accommodate ourselves in it and, reflect back. So I love the thing about.
The first thing was the importance of listening, like what Maitreyi said. Along with listening, it's very important for one to speak for themselves. And each person matters. Like someone just mentioned, like every student is unique. So while you teach, if you keep in mind that each student has a different story to share, each student matters, and you teach a child to speak for themselves, I think the world will be a much better place, with everyone understanding and accepting people around them for who they are. And the second thing that I take back is compassion for everyone around.